So much change. And so you mentioned that so I know in your world record race in 92 you had done like 13 and then like 12 steps I think after what hurdle
Yes, let
3
me
or
tell you
so,
what
right?
happened. I figured this happened. We had the race in Stockholm prior to that, and it was a race in which, Sam was the man. Sam had just won world championships in Tokyo the year
Yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah, they did.
He ran at Zurich here. He ran 47:10 in that
Yep.
race. Shut it down, blew my mind. Um, so of course in 92, we're all, season start. Everybody's kind of get a feel from one another. I never forget. It was a race in Stockholm, and I was testing out this new strategy. Me and John Smith got together because I was always having this problems trying to, once the energy beginning of the race got started, I would just run up on the hurdle. It started way back in 86. And at the time I would acquiesce and just back off the hurdle and just chop and go 13. And then I realized, now I need to figure this out. So I realized not going out as fast to the first hurdle, try to get there 6 seconds or better, right? Or faster. But 6 seconds was as I need to get there.
Yeah.
And then going obviously 13 for hurdles 2 and 3. And then it was to go 12 for 4 and 5. And I remember that sweet spot between the fourth hurdle and the say the sixth hurdle, from 4 to 5 and then 5 to 6, going 12 there. I remember in that race, I had put about 8 meters on Sam between the fourth hurdle, maybe say 4 meters there,
That's big.
cushion, and then another 4 meters
That's
cushion
big.
after the fifth hurdle. And then I carried that for 6, 7 into 7. And of course, so the real estate started to get shortened up as we got around the track. But it was enough to hold him off. And for me to know that I had enough at the end in my tank after the 10th hurdle to keep him at bay at least
Yeah.
6 to 8 meters. So that went on that happened at Stockholm. And I knew we were going for it. And I was like, oh, okay. Had another race, did the same pattern. It was successful again. And it was kind of like I knew what I needed to do, and I kind of had everybody else's number because no one really did kind of figure out how they needed to run the race. I was very satisfied on what my race pattern would be. And as I got an opportunity to do it more often, and then go back home and even practice it even more, my mindset was locked in. I was like, okay, and it was a good thing. Um, But it was a hard thing to be disciplined with it because typically happens when you get in those international races and you get on these great tracks and the adrenaline is there. It is so easy for you to do anything and everything that's counter to what got you there. And we see it all the time. So that was the hardest part was to be in the moment and lock into it and don't deviate from it, And it was hard to do, but it was the best thing it was and the crazy thing is it was the lesson that I learned from 88
Mhm.
because like I said in 88 I had no particular pattern whatsoever. I think I went 12 for the first 5 hurdles in
Ooh,
in 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 Seoul. I'm
wow.
alternating the whole time with a I'm alternating, and the crazy thing is even in 88 I psyched myself out because I had a hamstring injury prior to that. It healed up, but I'm telling you when I got warming up on the practice track in Seoul, I developed a knot in my hamstring, and when I finished the race in the final, the knot went from like this, and I swear, as soon as I crossed the finish line, it opened up, and I remember walking around the track going, "Where did this knot go?" I mean, and I realized I stressed myself out. And then that's when I was like, "Yo, you got to treat the Olympic Games like a track meet. You got to treat it like, I mean, you want to go there and you're going to show up and run fast, but you want to lock in, do what you have to do, and don't deviate from what got you there."
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking in 88, but in 92 came around. I said, I know what I needed to do. Even if I were to hit a hurdle, I had a rebound and a cushion, knowing that, okay, just stick with the plan, stay in my lane, and don't do anything crazy to get DQ'd. And like I said, and then another thing happens when you get in those situations is where you gotta pay attention to what's going on around you. Sam got DQ'd in his semifinal round.
That's
He had a trouble
true.
involved.
That is true.
So Oh, we're going to reverse that even further before the USA Championships. Danny Harris got hit with a drug violation.
Oh
So,
yes, 92. Yeah.
so in May, I mean, so psychologically, I'm thinking Matete, Danny Harris, Pat McGee, of course, Farmer Patrick. I mean, Dave, yeah, Dave, those guys. I'm thinking of the usual suspects in the race, but as the season was going on, Danny gets suspended, and I'm like, okay, all right, I got to worry about Danny. Then, of course, I said, Sam gets disqualified. So going into the final, it was Winthrop, who's always been a headache, collegially,
He's
all
a gamer. He's been
international,
he's
Pan Am
been
game, always been a headache. So the respect with Winthrop has always been there. And same thing with Dave Patrick. Um, so you could never, I would never ever count those guys out. But I know Winter was always a wild card. Oh my God. He was like Sam. He'll show up. He'll show up. And you'd be like, damn, where did he come from? But it became a race between Winthrop at that time, Winthrop and myself. And I didn't look at it that I had to beat Winthrop. I just knew I just had to be around Winthrop. I just needed to
Mm,
be somewhere. Like I said, at that point in time, it became not necessarily, I wasn't going for a record. I knew I may have had it in me, but the key was getting a medal. That
yeah.
was it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be in the right position because you play it safe. You think you're playing it safe in the earlier rounds. And like I said, I a lot of little nuances were happening to me during the course of the race. And I remember, I mean, we got 3 rounds in the hurdles. The first round, I go out. It felt like I was jogging at one point of the race. I go 11 steps again for the second time in my life at one of the hurdles, but I don't know it. It just happens. And I remember coming home after the 300 meters in the semis, and if to me it felt like I was running, conservatively, but then like I jogged from 300 meters to the finish line, just kind of, easing up, knowing that I got
Yeah.
another race. And the crazy thing is, I remember I ran 48:76. And I remember running as fast as I did. And I remember looking up at the clock and I remember scratching my head or doing something like this, going, damn. And I saw myself mumbling those words on the jumbotron, right? I was like, damn. So I walk away. And then the second round, and
Winthrop is you ran with Winthrop in
when
that.
yeah, and think about it. I ran the first round, I ran 48:76. I'm not sure that wasn't my PR, but then the second round, Winthrop goes out there and Winthrop runs 47:62.
Yeah. And
I
you're
ran
right there.
47:63,
Yeah.
right? We come up, like I said, I never count Winthrop out. We come off the 8 hurdle. My long stride is coming off the 8 hurdle. He's turning it over. We're going hurdle to hurdle, hurdle. I was step to step, pace to pace, right next to each other. And I never forget, he's not giving up an inch. I'm not giving up an inch because this is winter, right? And I'm going, I never forget this. We're running, and I'm going in my head, I'm like, we're in the semifinals. We're going to the finals. And
Y'all
I,
both
I
good.
literally felt like, okay, why am I struggling trying to beat this dude? I'm struggling trying to, I'm trying to outlean him. And at the split, I just said, forget about it. Let me just cross the tape with him. He crosses the tape. Yeah, and like I said, he runs 47:62.
62,
I
yep.
won 63. I PR'd. That was the fastest I've ever raced since 88.
Oh yeah, when you ran
I
47.
ran 47:85 to win my NCAA championship in 80. No, 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 no. I think I ran 48:90 at nationals at LSU that year.
Oh
No,
yeah.
LSU was 87. I ran 47:85 in Eugene,
Okay.
Oregon. I ran
Gotcha. Okay.
47:85. Um, But in 88, when I took third place at the trials in 88, I ran 47:72. So that was my PR back in 88.
Okay. Hmm.
I never ran that fast again until that semifinal race with Olympic. I run 47.63. I go from 72 to 63. And I'm like in my head, I'm kind of I'm confused. I'm all over the place. I'm like, damn, I got a PR. I said, but I know I didn't really push myself. And then I'm asking myself, but I did push myself because Winthrop had me running hard, you know? And I said, okay, all right, get it together. And then that's when in my mind it was like, okay, you got this far. Do not deviate. Because then Sam, and because a lot of, like I said, a lot of stuff was happening. I get a PR, Sam gets DQ'd, so everything, and I'm like, we got a rest day, then we got the final. The rest day happens, like Quincy wins the gold medal
Hmm.
on my rest day. He goes out and sets the Olympic record and all that, right? And so like going back to my point was you just okay, I got here. All these things have happened to my competitors. You just need to stay in your lane, stay focused, and finish the race without anything crazy. And and it was so hard because I remember when I got started in the race, I wanted to go 12 steps so bad between prior to before 4 and 5. I wanted to go 12 at the third hurdle, but that wasn't the game plan, right? So I remember clearing the hurdle, and I remember running to the fourth hurdle. And I took it with my right leg, which is my less dominant leg, and my arm is all over the place. It's like I'm all twisted up top. But the beauty of it is, I get back down onto the track. 'Cause, as a hurdler or someone who coaches hurdles, the first thing the coach is always going to say, get your butt back down to the track because that's where you get back into your critical arm swing. And a lot of times, we do so much going over the hurdles, twisting our bodies and not being focused or squaring our shoulders up. And I never forget when I saw that. I remember seeing the camera angle. I twist up so bad jumping over the hurdle with my right leg, my right leg. But like I said, I got back onto the track and to get back into my cadence. So I was just comfortable running. So of course my stride got longer because it goes from 12 back to 13, which is, it's a more controlled, obviously a more controlled step pattern for me, dominant step pattern. And I'm on my dominant leg, so it's I'm getting back, I can get back down onto the track a lot faster. And that was the case. And then I remember coming home after the seventh hurdle, that last 150, when I got to the eighth hurdle, I'll never forget this, when I got to the eighth hurdle, I was expecting Winthrop to be there because he was at the eighth hurdle 2 days ago. He was there, right? So in my head, I'm like, I can get through this turn, but I know I got to deal with Winthrop coming off the damn eighth hurdle. And I never forget when I got to the I realized I had that 6, 7, 8 meter cushion from with the strides. And I remember when I got to the eighth hurdle, he wasn't there. I didn't hear him. Like I typically, you feel that energy of your competitor. He wasn't there. And I got to the ground. And as I ran between hurdles, I knew he was going to be coming, but I had opened up enough
Yeah.
real estate between them. And I remember like the last 75 meters, or nah, because I cleared the hurdles at 40 meters between, I say 35 meters. I remember clipping the hurdle, hitting it, right? And I was glad that I hit it with my dominant leg and knocked
Yeah.
it over, kept the momentum going in
Hmm.
that direction. When I landed and as I was approaching, I was like, I'm about to win. I'm in my head, I'm about to win the Olympic gold medal. And I remember just running, obviously running, smiling, throwing my hand up. Um, and the record was there. And that was like obviously the icing or the cherry on the top of the sundae was hearing the guy announce my world record. And I was like, wow. It was just such uh,
Yeah.
a, a finishing moment. And it was like it was like I said, my roommate won the gold medal, Olympic record the day before. I got a chance to look at it and hold it. And then when it was my time to race, I remember talking to Q man. And we had wrote on the walls in the room and all that. And he was like, "Yeah, you just got to go out there and do it." And I remember when I was interviewing, we was just discussing it. I was like, "Damn, it's not like I wanted to outshine you, but I was like, damn, my roommate just did all this. What are my own personal expectations?" And he just said, "Just go out there and do what you have to do." I mean, he said, "Just go out there and execute like we train."
Mm,
And and it really, and I said, okay, if he said do it, just stay locked in, just stay locked in. Don't, you've been there before.
yeah.
And Quincy won the gold like on the third or the 4th of August. John Smith's birthday was on August 5th. I set the world record on August 6th. Um, and
Wow.
it was just, and you know how it is at the Olympic, between you being there as an athlete and you're trying to be a liaison or a chaperone when your parents or your guardians, when they get there, to make sure logistically they know, you got tickets for them. They got
Yeah.
to meet up with you to pick up the tickets, or you got to, they got to get the tickets somehow. Um, Logistically, they got to get from wherever they're staying, because I believe at that time there were a lot of parents were staying an hour and a half or so outside of Barcelona, taking the train in to go to the meets.
Interesting.
And I remember they were building a Planet Hollywood no, Hard Rock hotel out
Mm,
there, and half the hotel was completed, and the other half wasn't. And I remember going, and it was literally like down across the street from the Olympic Stadium, in walking distance. And I'm not sure if somebody had. I wanted to look for reservations, and
mm.
someone was telling me a room was going to open up. A room was going to open up. It was before my mom and my sister had gotten there. And sure enough, I told the manager, and I told somebody at the front, I said, "I'm gonna leave my credit card here. If anything opens up, reserve the room on this card." And I said, it may not happen, but just hold on to it. I had done that. I came down a few times. I think John may have been in the hotel.
Mm.
So they know my face, right? Because I was bugging, "Yes, Mr. Young, what like I lived there." They knew I was an Olympian going back and forth. I said, "Because I'm trying to get room for my mom. I want to and sure enough, they got a room, and the cool piece is they found out when they found out that I had won the gold medal, set a world record. The hotel literally had created a huge big bouquet of flowers to give to. I guess they gave to my mom. They gave them to my mother, and no, I think they gave them to her. And I thought that was so cool. I was like, wow, And then after I won, it was a few. Let me see. Yeah, they gave flowers because I didn't see my mother. I did not see her after I had run, after I had raced. One, I got took to all the international press, right? And then up all night. And then finally when I went to the hotel to see John, because he didn't get a chance because he was on coach, he had his coaching, he had just coached Q man, he just coached me, he'd run around with other athletes. By the time we got settled and situated, it was maybe August 8th, no, August 7th or
Yeah.
8th. I think we all met up at the hotel. I think we had lunch, and we are all in, I think, John's room, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I just started crying and boo-hooing, and I guess my mom and my sister were there, and they actually were in Seoul, Korea 4 years earlier.
Wow.
Um, and then they got a chance to witness that 4 years, be taking fourth place, and then coming back 4 years later to see me run and set, go world record. So, I broke Edwards' world record.
Hmm.
I broke Andre's Olympic record. So
Olympic.
so I was like, and then Dre, like I said, Dre, I go back home and everybody's happy for me. Like, man, you did it. You showed up. You did your thing. Um, and I was elated, of course. And like and 92 was just, and for me, coming out of LA, 92 was a special year for the simple fact that I spent, going back and forth between LA and Watts as a
Hmm.
collegiate, going back and forth home. And then they had the Rodney King verdict.
Yeah, that
And
was in 92.
I
That
was
is
in
true.
April, end of
Yeah.
April, and all hell broke loose. And like even before the trials in '92,
Yeah.
I'm in Watts. I'm watching the dynamics of all this stuff go down.
Hmm.
I remember when the Watts became a sanctuary for all the gangbangers because they had a peace treaty going on after the rise, and so there were places in LA that I never would walk around prior to that. Just knowing which section of LA I grew up in, boundaries, the invisible lines that have been crossed and drawn out for one's safety. Uh, but I remember in LA in '92, I saw cats I ain't seen since middle school,
Wow.
other side of LA, and guys were converging. I was in the projects. I was going all over the projects.
Wow.
Cass was going to parties. I wasn't trying to go to the parties because I had to go to train and work out.
Yeah.
But I was going to the parks and I was like, damn, all these Crips and all these Bloods together, they hanging out and everybody got their rags tied together and and I was like, Watts is popping. They had the peace treaty. Because I got family members who were part of all the gang stuff and just watched the love that was in the city. I mean, it was the energy because I mean, my dynamic growing up in Watts is, for me personally, was just so in many put it this way, in many neighborhoods where you have the dynamics of street life. You're going to have athletes who are saved because of the sport and the discipline of the sport, and then the respect that they gotten from the guys in the streets. Like, no, you do this. You're doing well on the track. You run track. That's your thing. Stay away from all the craziness. Then you got guys that you participated with on these same teams who are far better talented than you were. They just went that direction because they became their mindset. They want to start hustling. They want to do this, that, and the other. They want to look good a certain way, have a certain lifestyle. They're not disciplined enough. That track life is not for everybody, you know. And once I decided that, and that became, my goal, then I learned how to maneuver and move around, be in certain places, certain times, and knowing when to go home, when to bounce, when to leave. That always became a dynamic from high school. Then, of course, up in college, when things got crazy, I'm just visiting. I'm going back and forth. I'm getting pulled over by the police. I'm getting jacked by the cops. I'm getting profiled by everybody, by the
Yeah.
gangbangers and the police. So, as an athlete, you live in this world. You really live in this world. Just you're just trying to move through it and not be victimized. And I
Yeah.
think I've watched that, you know. And then, like I said, you want to share your stories with your buddies and all that, and the dynamics of that. But in '92, they had the riots, and that kind of crushed me because I remember when all that went down, they tearing up the city. I remember being at home. I was just watching the news, just shaking my head like, damn, this is crazy. I shot home, went to go check on my mom. She was all right. And then after that, they were like, yo, man, everybody coming to watch. Watch is cool. Everybody's kicking it in the hood. I'm like, really? Let me go back in there. And sure enough, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. You know, then I make the team, go off, do my thing. Then I come back. This is September now. I didn't get home because we had the mobile Grand Prix circuit that same year. So
Hmm.
I'm running
Hmm.
the mobile meets, running those, and trying my best to maintain my being undefeated because my my gas tank being on such a high after the Olympics. And I'll never forget when I looked at my season, I literally had a bell-shaped curve in my times. I think I mean like it was like from 48:12 and it went up 48 and it got into the 47s. It peaked at, of course, 46:78. And then the time started going down toward the end of the season. And I remember I struggled. Our last race was in Torino. That was the Mobile Grand Prix finals in Torino, Italy, 400-meter hurdles. Uh, and I won athlete of the year, mobile athlete of the year, and it's so crazy because I think the purse for being the best athlete was 30K. So after my undefeated season, winning Olympic Games, setting a world record, going to the remaining uh, mobile meetings, struggling finishing that race up and winning it, having the end of the finish season. I won 30 grand. I think then the next year, because they alternate, that was the time when they would alternate the years, the competition for the male and female in the hurdle race. So my year in
Uh,
92 was men's race, 93 was women's race. I think Sandra Farmer Patrick won the women's overall mobile Grand Prix. I think she got like 100 or 120 grand. I'm like, damn, y'all went from
what?
30K to that. I was like, this is
What?
the money's pouring into the sport, right? It's coming in. Um, you know,
Man.
but now the dynamics of it, but you just see so much has changed in the sport because I like going back to I remember there weren't any wired, it was cash money.
Yeah, yeah.
Money,
Gosh.
man. And as a youngster, you go to these meets and you see this little guy sitting around with a box, a money metal box on the elevator. You see all the agents, they're all lining up to go to the room to get their money for their athletes. And I remember being remember SMTC. I remember being here in Switzerland, being with Carl Lewis when he had a bag. He literally had a bag. When they were talking about chasing that bag, Carl had the bag. I watched him. He had the Mizuno bag. I watched it. I went to the bank with him, and I watched him he had $250,000 in cash money. Cash money. Yeah, I put your business out there, CL, because that shit blew my mind. I was like, what? I was like, this is crazy. So I could imagine, like I said, he went to all these different meets, 50K here and
That's
50
wild.
here,
That's wild.
50 here, and then little bonuses he got for beating up on these guys. He's like, I'm too heavy. I got to drop some of his bread off. And he's like, yo, come to the bank with me. I'm like, got the taxi, went up on Bahnhofstrasse to the UBS. It was all nice and shit. They had the champagne. They took the little back room. I had my little what, $1,300. But they was putting me up on game. I was like, okay, went in there. I remember that got me a safety deposit box. I went through the whole, I got me a little box to leave my little cash here. You know, I didn't have much, but I was just
Yeah,
wow.
watch it.
That doggone Mizuno bag. He had multiple Mizuno bags
I
filled
can
with cash.
imagine. Like,
And I remember and obviously, back in the day, they would always ask you, do you have more than what, $5,000 in currency?
mm,
If you do, you got to declare it. So I remember after that second year, I think I made like 11 grand, right? Bouncing around with little raises and bonuses and shit. I think I made 11,000. And I remember uh having the warm-ups with the roll-up hood in the collar, the zipper,
mm-hmm.
right? That was always a place where you roll up the money and roll it, put it in there and zip it up. You go through, just walk through customs. Yeah, that's before they had all this crazy screening, X-ray screening that you can see everything on the body. Before all that, Castle hide their money. Put if you would like I said, if you wouldn't leave it in, you wouldn't leave. Obviously, if you wouldn't have a international account to leave your money in Europe, you take it home with you. Uh, and it was before all the bank wires and the drafts that they do now. Everything's
Yeah,
is
yeah. It's electronic,
and,
yeah.
yeah, and it's not only electronic. They're taking their taxes. They're taking different countries are taking the amount of taxes out of your prize money unless you negotiate it, a set amount before you get there. And just watching the evolution of that change, it's like, wow. And I thank God I was able to make the little bread that I did make to pay off the little student loans that I had, as a collegiate. And then like and just my whole, I look back at my career, but I share all these moments in time with Steven, with
Mm,
Danny, Butch, you know. All these great athletes. I watched Butch set the world record at that 43:29 here in Zurich. I watched that race. That blew my mind. I watched how it went down. I watched when Innocent Ebeniki, Innocent took the race out.
yeah.
Innocent took
He
the
was
race out.
flying.
Flying. Stephen reacted and followed Innocent. And Butch always had this. this late kick, for for the last 75 meters, he just come closing. And Bush did that little move, ran at 43:29, and the crowd erupted in Lexington Stadium. They were banging on the galvanized steel that they used to have it in there. It was thunderous noise. And I'm like, oh my God, I just witnessed a world record. And
It's
it was
crazy.
amazing. Butch has always been one of my favorite quarter milers. Mike
Yeah.
is the baddest, but Butch is my favorite. And I can say that because Steve and Danny, them my brothers, they just
Yeah.
catch it. Butch is one of my favorite quarter milers. But
No,
yes,
man.
I've watched and like I said, I've been a part. The cool piece is I became a part of, not knowing I became a part of and laying the ground of my own history
Hmm.
in the sport from my perspective. Because the craziest thing is when I remember when I went to grad school here, how I ended up here anyway. When I was in grad school in the UK in Swansea, we're talking about track and field and the IAAF and the scandal, just the stories of yesterday and the stories of now. And I'm going, damn, I was literally the fly on the wall when all these scholars were literally writing about all this stuff and doing the research and the digging up and finding up the conspiracies and peeling back the onion. And I remember when I was in class, a lot of times I just sat back and was like, wow, I remember being in the hotel room and so and so had this strange look on their face. It is all these little different instances that I remember I was actually a part of. And I'm like, wow, I just pinch myself, you know.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
could
literally,
imagine,
this
man.
particular watch that I got on, right?
Yeah.
I had this watch, right? This is a watch. Carl was one of the first athletes that I knew that was sponsored by Tag, right? And
Mm.
Tag did a big event, I believe, here in Zurich. And so it was after the race. It's probably before he went and took that bag down to UBS, right? No, he did that the following day, but it was a reception by Tag Hoy, right? So they had a big reception. So they had the kiosk, they had the little they had these cabinets set up with the lights in it, and they had their different styles of watches. And they're just sitting there with all the executives and all that, and they're doing all the paparazzi stuff. And I remember standing there, it was me, Steve Lewis, Leroy, I think, and Danny. And we were like, yo, can we get a watch? Right? He's like, can we get a watch? And so at that point, when it was okay, then it was like, okay, who's fast enough to grab the particular watches we were looking in the case? So I remember grabbing this watch. This watch probably stayed in the time it stopped running. The battery died. It stopped running, and if obviously it froze. Right. This watch probably stayed in a bag for 25 years. I mean, I
Wow.
had no use for it. I tried to get it fixed at the Torno shop in New York, right? Because
Mm.
they have Torno stores at Columbus Square.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, one
They
in
had one
Columbus
and they had
Circle,
another one
true.
on the east side, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They had the two big stores, right? One on the Lower East Side in that area, maybe on Houston or somewhere around there.
Mm.
They always had the big marquee, but then they had
Yeah,
another
yeah.
one. And I remember going to the store with the watch, and they said, we're going to have to take the watch and send it to Switzerland anyway. I was like, well, shit, by that time,
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to go to Switzerland and get it fixed. The watch went back in the plastic bag or in a sock. But the next 15 years, it wasn't until I got here, literally, and of course, Louis Vuitton took over the brand, and so a lot of the pieces of the watch got discontinued because it's a 30-year-old watch, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
updating everything, like the shoes and the tracks nowadays, right? So I took the watch there, and the young lady's like, I can't, we don't have the pieces anymore. We're gonna have to send it out to the La Chiffon, the French
Mm.
speaking area of Switzerland, where
Up in
they
Switzerland, yeah.
watchmakers hang out on that side. But this young lady, she happened to be a high jumper, and she said, "Aren't she was like staring at me because she works for the tag store here and locally." And we just got to talking track, and she said, "Oh, I know, I recognize you, Kevin Young." Blah, blah, blah. I said, "Of course." Yeah, yeah, right. She's a really sweet young lady. And she's, I'm gonna, and she's like, I'm gonna fix that watch. This watch is a Frankenstein watch. She had to go find parts. She was digging and found screws that they don't even make anymore. But she found the screws because I had this watch at one point. They stopped making the metal and they replaced it with leather. I guess more costly
Oh,
fit.
yeah,
They'd have
yeah,
to make these little tiny screws. Long
yeah.
story short, she found the screw, fixed the watch. I wore it for a while with the leather band on it. Then I took it back. She fixed it, and ended up getting
No.
it. I got it back working. So now I walk around.
Yeah.
I realize how and the crazy is now we're always on our phones checking our time.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
obviously everybody has a watch on. So I wear it, but a lot of time I forget that it's I bang it up. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I
Yeah,
don't
this is
corner of a table, a door, or something. I'm freaking out. Like, okay, I need to be more mindful.
yeah, this is a special one.
It's special, you know.
Mhm. Man.
But our sport, man, it's so weird because I'll tell you what, this is how to me our sport gets weird. We have all these because you local kid coming out these communities, these places in the states, from the islands and all that, and then you come to these meets. And first track is just track, but you come over. Let me give you an example. 1992, my mom. Black women, they gonna go to places in summertime where they ain't got to do their hair. So of course, my
Hmm.
mom
Hmm.
got braids. She gonna spend her summer in braids. So she got my sister came get, I think both of them had their hair braided up. So they got
Yeah.
braids on. You wearing sweatsuits. Before sweatsuits was the norm. Sweatsuits, only time sweatsuits became the norm was for the athletes, right? But everybody else, so you come to me here in Switzerland, you go to the meeting, also they got all smoking jackets and white shirts and suits on, and then of course it's at a whole nother level when you go to the meet in Monaco because you got the prince there, it's his meet. So it's him and the royal family. And then you got the different federation officials from
Hmm.
the area. And then there's always obviously local politicians, but there's always some. And then, of course, you have the members of the IAAF at the time, because everything
Hmm.
is situated in Monaco, right? So you got heads of state who sits on their particular federation. They're all in Monte Carlo. So at this meet, they got a loge section for everybody that got big hats on and pearl necklaces. I'm at the meet 92, and Prince Albert gets tickets for my mom and my sister. And because I didn't get tickets for them for the meet because I really wasn't thinking about it, right? But they had tickets but they had them in the load section with all the IOC people and the World Athletic people there. And so everybody's suited and booted. My mom got on like old beat up. She got her summertime sweatsuit on. She got her 7 week old cornrows in her head. They all beat up. She roughed it, right?
Yeah.
She looked like she going to an AAU meet, basically. And she's an AAU coach, and she's back there in the woods with the kids, trying to get them together, right? Screaming and yelling. She's looking like that, busted up. And at the last, I said, "Mom, I got your tickets." I take it, and then she got this. She was happy she got tickets, and she found out she went to the meeting. She looked up. She said, "All these dignitaries." She said, I'm not going up there sitting up with them people."
Yeah.
Her little corner. Her and my sister found them a little corner in Monaco. He squeezed in there, sat down, and watched him.
Oh my God.
And I'm on the track, right? I'm on the track warming up. I'm looking for my mom, my sister. I'm looking for my ball, and then I'm like, oh, there you go. And I'm like, why did you guys go sit up? And then it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, okay, it's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They trying
I'm
to
not
they not
playing
trying to
myself.
be up
I'm
there.
not playing myself going up there with all them folks. I ain't ready for. Like I said, she had been matter of fact because we drove from Barcelona to
Mm.
Monaco right after the meet. Yeah,
Oh,
we got
okay,
in the
okay.
yeah, we got that was a lovely ride, but we drove from Barcelona to Monaco. Uh, so everybody's kind of busted up. We're all tired, trying to get this season over with. Like I said, and the fact that she either would have went straight home after Barcelona. Yeah, I said, nah, go to one of these international meets. She had never seen me running in that race. And oh, well, she obviously She never seen me race in a national meet other than
Internationally,
the
yeah.
Olympics,
Yeah.
and like I said, back in the day. But this time she got a chance to come to the meet and see what the world of track and field. And even as a young athlete, that always kind of I've always watched that dynamic about the sport because even when you first start running, you realize and you notice the sections and the folks who do sit in these different areas. I mean, think about it. Matter of fact, in Rome, when Tamberi was jumping, Europeans, I mean, they had the president of Italy was there, or
Yeah.
the head of Italy.
Yeah,
What's his
yeah.
title?
Maybe
Prime Minister, maybe.
prime minister,
Prime,
maybe
Prime
something like
Minister.
that. Yeah.
He was in the matter of fact, I literally watched Tamberi leave the high jump and be escorted to go up to hug the prime minister and to go back down and be Tamberi. I'm like, oh, that's dope.
That's crazy.
So that whole elite kind of elitism sort of thing the track has with it, that the athletes don't typically they're not really a part of that. That's kind of like
Mm,
you see the sponsors indulging in all that. You see that dynamic. And obviously as an athlete, you just focus in on doing your thing, getting the hell off the track, getting your bread, and hopefully be successful and go on.
that's true. Yeah. Man.
But now a lot has changed, and even from the position, we're having this conversation about how it's evolved.
Yeah.
We typically look at it as you're just a performer or you're a spectator. You don't look at it from creatively from the business side, because you are the business at that point. Then when you
Hmm.
stop running, you go, well, damn, I still want to be a part of it, but how do I get in where I fit in? Because you can really get ostracized and really fast.
Really quick.
If you're not trying to be an agent, and even, that's one thing I never wanted to do. But you want to help athletes out, but you don't want to get caught up in the politics of it. But it's interesting. It's interesting. How do you see yourself as a I can't even say because to me, now times content creator is so it's loose now. I mean,
Hmm.
everybody's a content. You actually you're doing production, you're editing,
Hmm.
getting
Hmm.
creating the content, editing, and finding resources to talk to. In case of point, we're talking in doing this, which we
Yeah.
hopefully win multiple times. But I can imagine you trying to set this up for other athletes and getting the brush back, or no one has the time to do it. And you just got to be open-minded, as creative as you possibly can, and fit yourself in that window.
Yeah.
You know, it was because it was all about the writers. It was all about guys.
Yeah. That's what
I
it
mean, all
was.
the track and field writers. That was track and field writers used to be they had their. I mean, they still do have their own. Uh, I would say organization, but it's not as big as it used to be. No
No,
way, no
not at
way,
all. Not at
not at
all.
all.
Not at all. At all. Even now, like I do some writing, but like that's not where it's really at. Like it's all about the video, the content, like all that kind of stuff. Like
And the crazy thing about it is, and this is in all sports, the general nature of people, not that they want to hear all the salacious stuff, but athletes are doing the people person and the normal person as athlete gets caught up at times,
yeah,
living their own life,
yeah.
right? Living their life, trying to, and it's no one, it's a juggling act. I guess in a microscope.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, I sit back and I just pinch myself and say, thank God they did not have these cameras, didn't have these phones. I mean, when I was coming up, the biggest thing that we were trying to get were freaking earphones.
Really?
That was the technology that we were all searching for. When we got an
Wow.
opportunity to go to Japan in the 80s, they had these Budokan head speakers that were the bomb. And when we got to Japan, we were going out our way to go into Akihabara and all that. And you go into a building, they got 7, 8 floors and nothing but electronics, and you're just going,
Yeah.
I literally, this happened, matter of fact, this was in '88. I remember I bought a Kenwood stereo system, got it boxed up and everything, shipped back to the States. Yeah, getting into high fidelity and you know, amp, equalizer. I didn't get speakers at the time. Wouldn't make sense to get speakers, but I had the amp, in it, equalizer, had something else. Oh, cassette deck, dual cassette tape deck.
Oh,
That's what
dual
it was.
cassette tape. Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah, right. And you have to, you don't have your dual cassette tape at home, but or you have the Walkman. The Walkman was huge, and then the different evolutions of the Walkman was. Matter of fact, no, the Walkman was getting played out because we started listening to disc.
Mm,
These were playing out, and we were listening to disc in the around that time.
that
Because I
makes sense.
remember I ended up with 92. I ended up with Carl's Sony Discman because he had a flight real early, and once one we had to pack his stuff up for him, or he packed his stuff. I borrowed his Discman, and I forgot to give it to him. And when I went to give it to him, I realized he had left the country. He went to another
Oh,
meeting.
he's already
So I was like, okay,
gone.
I'll give it to him the next time. I think along the way he ended up buying a new one because he didn't have his, and I ended up with his disc player for the rest of my life. I don't have it anymore. I remember
Oh man.
sports have changed. No more club teams.
Yeah, that's the
I,
thing. There's no
I was the
more.
heyday of the club teams, man.
There's no more clubs. It's like you were saying before. You leave college and you just go with a pro coach. You're not with like a real club situation. Like
And you may have a
yeah,
college coach who is that pro coach. I
exactly. You
mean,
may
and then
yeah.
John morphed into that at UCLA
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
via
yeah.
through us, literally through
Yeah.
his. I mean, and I can imagine what Mouse has been doing,
Mm,
Edric, you
true.
know.
Even Quincy now, I mean, talking like Rye Benjamin, right?
Exactly.
He stood under Quincy. So that's
The
true. That's
Joanna
true.
now, Carol Gilbert.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, it's that's, and I never in my life pictured it like that. Um, because I remember, I mean, I had a lot of stuff told to me as a runner that was very disingenuous by people that I actually looked up to,
Mm.
and I was like, why would they say that? But they were from another. I mean, I've heard people say, well, I had broken when I broke Edwin's record. I had folks, um, leaders of USA Track and Field, say, well, he's no Edwin. I'm like, well, why would they say that? You know? But they were in a space where they said, and I was like, oh, that's kind of screwed up. I always
Yeah.
wanted to ask them about that. Like, why would you say that I'm not Edwin? I'm obviously not Edwin. I'm faster than him. I ran faster than Edwin. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all I did. No one's trying to be Edwin. You can't be Edwin. You can't be the GOAT.
Yeah.
I'm Kev. I like who I am. I like my accomplishments. I like who I've met over the years. I like who I'm connected with on and off the track. I never really got caught up in the whole head game about the sport. I've always been level-headed because you get hurt, you're done. I've watched the BS, I watched the nonsense. You know, I've seen athletes who took drugs who didn't know what the hell they were doing. And I'm like, well, why are you taking drugs in the first place? And you don't even know how to take drugs and getting caught. So you might as well don't take drugs. And when you're running well without them. I've seen athletes get caught up in that bullshit. Excuse me.
No worries,
Right?
of course.
And I always told myself it's never that serious. And track was never that serious. For me, we'll put it this way. It never became that serious that I wanted to harm myself just to run the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. And it's even like, even going back to what you were saying, like you had coming from where you came from, you had people who were like in the streets who were like, all right, you do your thing. Like we want to see you be successful in your own way. You don't want to like ruin that and like let your people down in a sense, right?
Yeah. And I realized I was always I could just say the outlier. I'm not sure if that's the best word to use, but it was always it was so easy for me to get caught up in the craziness because all my peers in my age group were getting caught up,
Mm.
and we all knew right from wrong. But I'm like, dude, you see where that's going? It's written on. It's right there. It's like written. I mean, you see what direction that's whatever y'all doing is going that direction. I was always safe. I've always felt safe in my track and field because the sport itself always made you were always isolated anyway.
Mm.
Point
Mm.
in the sport that you've always felt that damn, I'm in it by myself. And you're always searching for that one, two, or three people or that group of people that would support you. And lucky enough for me, I found that in different people who saw me. I know what it was. It was folks who saw me when I was really bad. And I knew I was really bad, but they always encouraged me. And then when I improved, they were always quick to say, I see what you're doing. I see your improvements. And it was just that light that's like, okay, yeah. And sometimes that's all I needed. I just need and you just need to know you go your head in the right direction
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
if you're not, you'll be all over the place,
That's so
and
true.
but yeah, the sport is amazing.
Yeah, so much
Never,
has changed.
never fails to bring out my interest.
So much has changed.
It always changes.
I do wonder, before we kind of head out, I do wonder, I mean, of course, talking on all those changes, like, and like now, like you kind of broke down 92 and all that. Now, like with these guys, like, did you ever imagine that, like, of course, okay, world record would be broken someday, but like that they would get to where they're at now, where we've seen 45, we've seen, these guys hitting 46s like
On the
crazy.
daily, I mean, that's the
Yeah, like,
norm.
like, did you
I
ever
really
imagine
freak out
that?
of that's the craziness because even when Edwin and Danny, myself, you've only had a few people racing in the 47-second range. In that
Yeah,
range,
yeah,
you never had collectively three guys that will run under 47 seconds. First and foremost, 48 seconds is fast.
it's crazy.
If you have to run 48.5, that's fast. Running 48 flat will get you medal. Would at a time will get you medals all day, every day. 48, 47, 47 high. You like I said, I ran 47.7. I was good, you know. But the beauty of this is to watch these guys run as fast as they run though. Because they're running a win, which I was like, they just totally took the governor off and then just flooring it. The whole strategy has changed, you
Yeah,
know, running
yeah,
fearless, which is so cool. And they're
yeah,
training that way too. It ain't like they just running. I couldn't imagine what they're doing in their training sessions. I mean, I bust my tail with the quarter miles out with Danny and Steven. I bust my ass every day running behind these 43, 44-second quarter milers as a hurdler. But now you got hurdlers capable of running under 20 seconds in the 200,
yeah,
10 flat and 10 flat or better in the one.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, you got the Santos. I mean, I was an anomaly as a person who went 12 strides. DeSantos goes out there and runs 12 for like five, six hurdles
yeah,
all the time. All
yeah,
the time.
which is
And he's still
crazy.
figuring it out. That's the crazy part about these guys. They're running super fast and they're still trying to figure out how to run faster. And the crazy thing is they're figuring it out. I guess it's okay. We train this. I mean, I'm still waiting for Ryan to just
Mm.
go somewhere, whatever his talents take him. Because I know we haven't seen the best of him yet. We've seen his best, but not the best of of what he's doing.
Mm.
And Carson has rewritten the book on the hurdles, a hurdle 400-meter hurdle performances. I would say all three of them have. You run
Yeah.
it if you run consistently under 40. I mean, your season starts up. Oh, I got to run the 47 seconds.
You starting off like that. Like what? Like
Yo, yo, he opened up the season with a 47-2. I'm like, I mean, but you know what? That was so crazy because the breakout year that Carson had in 2021,
yeah.
after he broke my world record when he ran the 70, the 46-70,
Yeah.
he went, I saw him running in Rome. I saw him run, he ran like a 47-2, a 47-3 in Rome. He came back, he went to Monaco, ran another 47-2. I'm like, this dude is running. He was running under 47-4. 47-4 is fast. World Championships was won in 83, I mean 87 in 47, what? 40, 40,
47 4 something. Yeah. Something around there. Yeah.
I mean, all out. Edwin and
Yeah.
Schmidt and Danny, all out. All out. Guy, it was just amazing to see how close he can just to run all these sub 47 fours. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, man.
And
It's
watching him do it, making crazy mistakes.
that's the
He
thing.
would he
Yeah.
would have to run a 47-2-3 race, a 47-5 race flawlessly when I was running. Flawlessly. These guys is running as fast as they running. I mean, and not just them. I keep little cards around here all day. This is a card that I have of McMaster's.
Oh my gosh.
I've watched this young man ran 47-34, right? He went 13 steps to seven hurdles and then 14 steps for eight, nine, and 10 and finished the race.
Really?
I watched the race and I'm going, wow.
Wow. And he
He
dropped
put,
wow.
I mean, just to put a series of 14, I mean, even when Carson, Carson ran 13s, then he went to 15, right? Shuffled that 15 in there real quick, but the
Yeah.
momentum was going. He knew how to shut it down. This kid went 13 and said, okay, now I'm going 14 the rest of the race. And I'm like, that timing is
That's
fast.
wild.
That's getting up to the hurdle and getting back down. So basically, when I look at the race, as I've been able to look at the race, and even coach the race the way I envision it, I said, you have to break it down subtly into the way in which a lot of the coaches give workouts. Athletes do a lot of 250s, they do a lot of 150s all day, every day during the course of the year. 300s, 350s. So if you break the race down from the first hurdle to the seventh hurdle, it's 255 meters. So that's basically 250 out of the blocks to the seventh hurdle. So you're basically running a sub 19-second 150 to the finish line, which athletes do. You see sprinters, they run 16 seconds in the 150.
Yeah, yeah.
15 and change in the 150. So I've seen athletes, and I can put myself in the same boat, having to repeat 150s in practice and running like 16.5. You got to walk back, run, say 17 seconds. That's just the window. And you're running, legs beat up, but you're getting out, finishing strong, you're running under 18 seconds. Now I'm going, wow. You look at the numbers. If the athlete gets from the blocks to the seventh hurdle in 30 seconds, if he's able to run 17 seconds for the last 150, that's a 47 flat race, right?
Yeah.
It's at 30 seconds. If you get to 30 seconds at the seventh hurdle, you know how many guys are in front of you who's already gotten there at 28 and change? Half the field practically. So
Yeah.
you got guys, you get the race isn't as conservative as it was when I ran. I think I got to the hurdle when I set the world record. I look at it because that's the benchmark, right? When I set the world record, I think I got there at 28.9,
Wow.
maybe 29 flat, right? And then but these guys are getting to the seventh hurdle under 30 seconds. And that's blowing my
Wow.
mind.
That is wild.
I mean, it used to be a big thing to be in the 4 second range after the fifth hurdle, because
Hmm.
typically you go, 3/8 from the second, third, fourth. If you get to the fourth or the fifth hurdle under like 388, 399, coach is like, you're there. These guys are going 402, 412 at eight because you fall off after eight. It's like 422, 430, 4.34 seconds in between. And usually after the 10th hurdle, it's five and change. And we've seen guys run 507. For that last 40 meters, 522 is
That
fast.
is
And I
fast.
mean, I've watched guys run shitty first half of the race to come off the 10th hurdle and blaze. I watch guys run really nasty first part, and then I mean, like it's
It's
like I said,
crazy.
when McMaster ran that, no, he ran 28:44 to the seventh hurdle. And then he ran eight in the
344.
last 14, so he ran 18:9 over the last three hurdles, 7, 8, 9, and finished at around 47.3. And mind you, he took what place he took in this race?
Which one was that? Was that Budapest
I think
or
this was I think this was Budapest. I think it was.
when he got the silver behind Karsten, I think.
I think it was Budapest. Yeah.
It might have been. That's
I got another
crazy.
card that I get somewhere around. I got stuff all over the place.
Man.
Um,
Cause
But
I
yeah, man. But
yeah.
still, this is a crazy. So now in this world, and see, I keep talking to you forever. The changing dynamics of the sport itself is you got people commenting on you, people telling me, "Oh, you would have got wax if you raced these guys." I say, well, I can honestly say this: had those guys been around in '92, I would have whipped their ass. And had I been around
Yep.
in 2020, they would have whipped my ass. So it's
Yeah.
quid pro quo right at this point. But the beauty of it is that's just evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
No
sport.
one saw me coming with my 4678. They didn't see me coming. They say, Edwin's record is probably eventually going to be broken, but we probably won't see it no time soon.
Hmm.
And then when it happens, you go,
Like, whoa.
where did that come from?
Hmm.
I mean, I can honestly say at least I had mine for 29 years.
That
I literally watched the count. I watched Karan Clement miss the record. I just knew he was going to break it. I thought Angelo was going to break it.
Angelo was
Right?
there. Yeah.
Angelo was the first person I thought was going to break the record. I think we talked about this at one
Yeah.
point.
Because he's
And
I think he's probably the fastest like flat runner, right? Who was a hurdler too. Like he had that.
Now you got Quincy Hall.
I know that's
Now
true.
you got
That's
these.
true.
Now you got these. See, think about it. You had quarter. I mean, you had quarter hurdlers who would just run quarter hurdlers, and every now and then, I remember Dre stepped out, running a lot of
Hmm.
open races, and was kicking everybody's butt. But then I started seeing that when Ashton Eaton got into the hurdles,
Oh
and
yeah, that's true.
he was nasty.
He was
Ooh,
real good.
he was hurt. He was putting hurt on intermediate hurdles left and right. I was like, ooh, and I feel bad for my guys because I'm like, how y'all let a decathlon?
Right?
That's why when I see Carson did what he did, I'm not shocked because Ashton was doing that, right?
Yeah, beforehand,
He
for
did
years
it
before.
years before. But so and then I had to joke with Carson. I said, well, dude, I can imagine you get to just run one race as opposed to doing 9 events. Oh, dude, you don't have to train as a thrower anymore, as a jumper anymore. Dude, you're good. I mean, and
That's
I see why you running balls to the wall for the first hurdle. You ain't got nothing to lose.
nothing, nothing.
Nothing. Running intermediates beach training as a decathlon all day. It
All
has to.
day. I could imagine.
Has to, right?
I could
So,
imagine.
and he's
Oh
having
man.
fun with it. And now the evolution of the sport now, and it's not that it's easy. It's not easy to find, but you have players in the sport, different sponsors, entities that are getting involved now. I don't know how intrinsic they're going to be, how they're able to do it, because we
Mm,
know that world athletics and European athletics kind of have their own little chokehold, stranglehold, or this their organization that
yeah.
is a lot more cohesive. They've been doing it for over 100 years, right?
Literally, literally.
Yeah. right? So, and as an athlete, as a former athlete, being here, just having that perspective now, going, oh, okay, I see why things have been able to happen or have happened over the decades in the sport. And and as a young athlete, obviously they're going to be focusing on what they're doing now. But the crazy thing is you want to stay involved in the sport, but you really don't want to. I could be probably a good agent, but man, they're all over the place. They're all over the place. And they're all over the place, which is cool. But what I do like about the sport itself, we have access to other places. When I went to Monaco for the first time, I was like, damn, the F1 cars go right under the hotel. I was like, oh
Yeah,
my God.
yeah.
And I remember coming to Europe in the summertime, watching all these Formula One races go down and being a track athlete, you go, damn, how, you know, you see all the top tier sponsors, at the French Open and Wilmington, F1, if they have it in Austria, if they have it in Monaco, and or different other places. You see people flying in from all over the world just to be, and they're basically they got the folks who hobnob at those events. You got the same folks who hobnob at NFL games and NBA games, front row type of people.
Hmm.
Now we've seen how everybody's, going
Oh,
back and forth.
yep, yep.
And I've watched the evolution of football being viewed from my American perspective to how the world has looked at it. I've watched that. I've been able to entertain that, and now even in the sport itself, in track and field, I'm going, okay, there's a lot of low hanging fruit here that has to be picked before it goes spoiled, right? It has to.
Yeah, yeah, man.
That's why I like talking to yourself, the younger audiences. I like being the fan, um, because there are things that are happening in the sport that I wasn't able to benefit from as a young athlete that I want to make myself be able to benefit from as a former athlete.
Yeah,
So just
yeah,
I see a lot of low hanging fruit that I want to be a part of.
yeah. You
Um,
have to, you have
But I'm,
to.
but I'm seeing that the shoe company's not even doing it. It's a lot. It's a lot. And that's why Michael saw that sweet spot with the Grand Slam stuff. Was like, yo, and even authors with the ladies. That's always been there. It just always takes somebody to step up.
Someone has to take that step and like take advantage of that
Someone has to
initiative and like do it.
somebody has to be the what they call it, the figure that kind of breaks things up with the disruptor.
Yeah, the disruptor. Exactly.
Disruptor.
Exactly.
Mike became a pleasant disruptor.
Yeah,
Because I
exactly.
find I find that the usual suspects in the sport, they stop working for shoe companies and become consultants and shit, either for TV or for the shoe companies themselves, or for the organizations, for the function of these organizations,
Hmm.
for the
Hmm.
European athletes, for the different meets and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And it's not like it's always been that way. I just haven't been privy to or even focused on seeing it happen and go down that way.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
going, oh, so this is what's going on. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Because yeah,
And I like,
it's like you said. You got world athletics, European athletics. Like they've been here for literally. You're talking about 100 years or whatever it is. Now you have to have these people kind of
and so
like step
now,
in.
and now you say we're going to Africa now. That wasn't that we weren't going to Africa any years ago. They were doing training in Africa, but
Mm,
all my African brothers was either in the States at major
yep.
universities or D1, D2, D3 schools, getting educated first and foremost,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
But being coached by great coaches and letting their abilities in the sport do what it needs to do.
Hmm.
However, now meetings in Botswana, you got
It's in
meetings.
Kenya, South
Yeah,
Africa, like all over now.
I'm sure Namibia is about to be on the map
Very
soon.
true. Very true.
Yeah, yeah. And in different places, you got places like Reunion. They always have a clinic in Reunion. and the French part in the middle of the Indian Ocean over there.
Yep,
They
yep,
got
yep.
been going on for years. I've never been invited. Maybe one day I'll be invited.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yes,
This
yes,
was
yes,
this was amazing, man. We'll definitely be able to connect again to like even fill in more stories and stuff. But
for
this
sure.
is beautiful, man. This was beautiful. So yeah, man.
But go and do your thing with
All
the
right,
dog,
man.
man.
Appreciate you, bro. So appreciate you, man. We'll talk. We'll talk.
Definitely. You
All
have a
right,
good
Kevin.
day.